guys? Back again on the balcony. I'm going to be talking about what I consider to be my favorite comic book of all time, why it's my favorite comic book of all time, and what messages I got out of that. I'm also going to be doing a book haul, and then just kind of like updates on what's coming up on the channel, where my writing's at, where my audiobook narration is at. So there will be timestamps down below. The comic book I'm talking about is Mr. Miracle, and I actually just splurged on the Absolute Edition that DC Comics put out. It was originally going on Amazon for like $130, and then it was going for like $75 limited time. So I had to snatch it. I would not get the Absolute Edition for any comic book, but Mr. Miracle by Tom King is without a doubt the greatest comic book I've ever read in my entire life. The reason for that being is in this comic, we get the amazing relationship between Scott Free and Big Barda. That relationship is amazing. The exploration of Scott's trauma and the way he was kind of abandoned by his father. Very slight spoiler here. You do see him come to terms with his own fatherhood and the responsibilities that are then thrust upon him. And I'm just going to mention the opening page. So this story opens up and Scott Free has attempted to kill himself. And when I first opened issue 1 of Mr. Miracle, I'd heard the critics say that this was amazing. I was very surprised by what I found on that first page. And you know, some authors do stuff like that and it feels like it's for shock value and they're not actually saying something contemplative and something momentous about melancholia, about depression, about suicide. And that is not what Tom King is doing here. In fact, I don't know the man personally. I've never even had an online conversation with the guy, but I would be very surprised if Tom King did not have his own struggles with depression. That's how authentic it comes across on the page. Not to say that you have to go through depression to write a character that's depressed. You don't have to go through alcoholism to portray that accurately within the text, but my own experience, I think that this came across that he has experienced that. So what is this book about? I'm just going to give you a brief spoiler-free review of it, and then we're going to be on to the book haul. For those that don't know anything about the New Gods, they were so it's a comic book that was introduced, well, the New Gods were a premise created by Jack Kirby when he came from Marvel to DC. That's where you get the characters of Orion, Darkseid. Now, who is Mr. Miracle? Mr. Miracle is the son of Allfather, and he was traded for Darkseid's son, Orion. So they like swapped children, right, to put off this war between Apocalypse and New Genesis. This is all, it's explained briefly in the first 2 pages of Mr. Miracle. They're not actually the first 2 pages of the comic. They're more just a supplemental tool, kind of akin to like Dramatis Persona and Malazan, or just, you know how Mark Lawrence does his like the story so far stuff, which I think more authors should do. Very akin to that. It's just catching up on the lore of the New Gods up to the point where we find Scott Free and his wife Barda. And in this story, when we actually pick it up, as I said, he has attempted to kill himself. His wife, by the way, their relationship is one of the highlights of this book. One of the highlights. It is the highlight of this book. This is a couple that feels so powerful, so not codependent. They are very much each other's strength. I don't know how Scott would have gotten over this depression if not for Barda. Which I feel like that is a popularized, it's become the stigmatized thing, like, oh, you can't rely on your partner to get over depression. You have to overcome that yourself. And there is an aspect of truth to that. You do need to overcome your personal battles internally before you can do them within your own ecosystem. But I feel like that is kind of reducing the impact that others can have on our life. And in this first issue, Tom King and Mitch Gerads expertly implement this different narrative tool where they say Darkseid is. Darkseid is a term that is used throughout DC Comics. It's to mean like doom is coming, there is no hope. Darkseid is. Like, how could this world have hope if there's a world where there's Darkseid? And Darkseid is just, you know, the most evil character in DC Comics. People more well-versed in DC might be like, no, actually, but from my very basic understanding of DC Comics, Darkseid is about as evil and vile as you can get. while Darkseid doesn't appear too much within the comic, the imagery of him in the name of Darkseid and the attachment of that name and that antagonist to Scott's trauma is expertly done. You know, you'll get 9 panels of Scott going through life and trying to find that hope and trying to persevere through his depression. And then you'll get the big take up a whole panel and it will say Darkseid is. And at first it's just 1 panel out of the page. And then it's 2 panels out of the page until nothing but Darkseid is occludes the entire page. And that's all you can see. And you know, it's a perfect image to show how this depression is consuming Scott free. And who is Mr. Miracle truly? If you're not well versed in DC Comics, he's the world's greatest escape artist. And this is the story of the world's greatest escape artist escaping his own depression, escaping his own bout of suicidal thoughts. And it's not going to be as simple as, oh, now I'm happy. You know, it's something he continuously battles with. And in this 12-issue maxi series, it is perfectly explored. In my opinion, it is the greatest comic I've read of all time. You know, I've read Watchmen. I've read a lot of Alan Moore. I love Alan Moore. And you can tell that he loves Alan Moore from the way he panels. Tom King and Mitch Gerrits both probably have immense respect for Alan Moore. But in my opinion, Mr. Miracle is not only the most powerful comic book I've ever read, it's in contention for one of the most powerful pieces of fiction I've ever consumed. I'd put this right up there with Malazan Book of the Fallen, with Wars of Light and Shadow, with Realm of the Elderlings. I put it up there with some of my favorite shows, BoJack Horseman, Evangelion, some of my favorite, Breaking Bad, you know, one of my favorite movies, Good Will Hunting, A Silent Voice, just to give you a little snapshot of other things I enjoy besides fantasy novels. But it's one of those works that very much influenced the way I view the world and the way I view my own place within that world. So, absolutely loved it. I had no knowledge of the Fourth World and the New Gods prior to reading Mr. Miracle, and it was still a very enjoyable story. So I recommend you go into that. Just as is, you don't need to bog yourself down with all the continuity. I haven't read the Fourth World stuff yet. I do want to read it and then reread Mr. Miracle and see if there's little hints, because I know Tom King, he's going to layer those little hints and those little nuances throughout the comic, but it's not needed to get the emotional resonance of the story. It's not needed to understand the plot. It's not needed to understand Scott and Barda's relationship. It's not needed. Nothing against Jack Kirby. I'm sure his work is brilliant. But if you want a modern, emotionally resonant tale that doesn't require swaths and decades of lore to understand, pick up Mr. Miracle by Tom King. You don't have to get the Absolute Edition. They have a 12-issue paperback. They have the whole thing collected in paperback. I think it retails for around $20, $24. All right. And on to the book haul. So I got one comic book, and it is The Impending Blindness of Billy Scott. This is the first comic by Zoe Thorogood. I read her second comic, It's Lonely at the Center of the Earth, and she references this one a ton because that was kind of a fourth wall breaking, very meta commentary on the process of making comics and also on depression and melancholia, much like Mr. Miracle, Lonely at the Center of the Earth. Super mega fast review. One of the best comics I've ever read in my entire life. Right up there with Mr. Miracle. So I want to read The Impending Blindness of Billy Scott, which this one is fictional, unlike Lonely at the Center of the Earth. And I want to kind of see what the hype is about and see if I enjoy it. And you could see, like, let me just show you a brief page. Zoe Thorogood is known for her very like weird and wacky and out there art. I think she's a genius. I think she's one of the best comic book creators currently working. She doesn't have a incredibly high output rate. You know, she's kind of like the Frank Ocean of comics. Like when she drops, but it's always something to take note of. So yeah, I should be getting to that at some point and throughout the month, probably supplementing between my bigger book reads. I got book 4 in the Titan Wilds by JDL Russell. This is a self-pub book. I think book 1 was in SPF V08. That's what put it on my radar. I have all 4 in hardback, but I have not read them yet. This one I'm really pumped about. It seems right up my alley. By Blood, by Salt. JL Odom is such a fun personality on Bookstagram. She seems very courteous. She seems very intelligent and very kind, and I enjoy watching her Instagram stories. and I am very excited to read this and the sequel, A Haunt for Jackals. This Sealed Empire by Norbert Shivs? Norbert here wrote Sealed Empire, which is a standalone fantasy sci-fi. I'm seeing a pirate ship and a giant mecha that looks like it should be used to fight kaiju monsters. So should be pretty interesting. I'm not sure when I'm going to get to this one, but hopefully this summer. I say that for all of these. Hopefully this summer. I got The Crimson Fire by Abel Montero. Or is it Abel? Abel? I actually DM'd him a little bit whenever I got this book because, guys, the different parts all have these silhouette illustrations. Beautiful. Perfect. I think at least the way the book is formatted is beautiful, and I can't wait to actually read the text. Yeah, they're all different. They all are super cool. So that's fun. And then I'm reading. So quick up, I'm going to announce 2 read-alongs right now. Yeah, let me just get those out of the way, and then we'll continue with the book haul, because these read-alongs are part of the book haul. But I'm doing a read-along with Chris from the first chapter, Anna from Russia with Books, and David from Four Corners of the Page. For Anna and David, it's a reread. For me and Chris, it's going to be a first-time read of The Road by Cormac McCarthy. I heard that Cormac mainly does Westerns. I hear that his prose style is kind of dense and very tonally rich. I'm going to be honest, I'm not a fan of the very, very nondescript covers. I'd rather a cover that shoots for the moon and comes across as very weird than something that doesn't even try. And to me, that's just straight black background with the words The Road. Not very interesting, but with Anna and David's endorsement, I'm more inclined to pick this up. And me and Chris are going to have a fun time buddy reading it. I mean, all 4 of us will, but me and Chris are like the new readers of it. And then with Jake from Nerd Level Rising and I Samwise, 2 absolutely brilliant booktubers, far more intelligent than me. So I'm just going to be gleaning their gleanings. I'm going to be Gleanception. I'm going to be able to get insight into this book from both of them reading it. But we are going to be reading The Tales of Thomas Covenant, the Unbeliever, book 1, Lord Foulsbane. And I think we're going to go a book a month for the first trilogy and then kind of take a test and see where we're at. Plus, as I mentioned in my last balcony video, I want to do that Drowned Kingdom read along, which Philip Chase jumped on board with, which is super, super, super cool. Immense respect for that guy. Probably my favorite booktuber, point blank period. Back onto the book haul. So, The Mechanical. I picked this up because of I Samwise, going off of what I just mentioned, doing that read along. He recommended this, the Ian Tregillis trilogy. It's trad-pubbed by Orbit, but I don't think it did very well. It's an alternate history, sort of industrial age, steampunky, iRobot-y, Protestant Catholic. It seems like it's got a lot of things going on, and I'm very excited to read it. It's probably not high on my list at the moment, just because I've got so many things on the TBR that built up to it, and to make time for a trilogy, I'm gonna have to move that down a couple months. But I'm hoping to read all 5 of the recommendations that me and Sam did in our video. Depending on when I put this out, I don't know if that video will be out or not. Either way, I'll link it and put the thumbnail somewhere on the screen. But we each recommend each other 5 series, or not series, 5 hidden gems, and this was one of his hidden gems. And I'm hoping, we did that on his channel. I'm hoping in the future, maybe on my channel or his channel, it doesn't matter, we could do kind of a check of like, okay, we read the 5 hidden gems. Were they gems or were they freaking minerals? Were they duds, and just going off of that. And then the prettiest book that I hauled is The Magician by Raymond E. Feist. Very hyped about this one. I've never read any Ray Feist. There's the man himself. But I have a ton of interest. Oh my goodness. Look at that dragon. If you're a fantasy fan that doesn't get hyped about dragons, are you really a fantasy fan? Yeah, pretty pumped about this. As I was saying, I am really wanting to get into all of Janie Words' bibliography. She's become like my favorite author. So I do want to read her Daughter of the Empire or the Empire trilogy. And that I'm a publication order enthusiast. So I do want to read those first 3 Magician books before getting to the Empire books. So I know I'll read those 6. I will read Magician, something at Sethenon, something like that. I'll read those 3 books, and I'll definitely read Daughter of Empire, Servant of Empire, and Something of Empire. I'm reading those 6. If I go beyond that and keep reading in the greater Rift Wars series, I'll see how I feel after those 6. But yeah, that's currently what I have planned. Oh, my updates on the audiobook. So I'm about 29% done. Final recording of the audiobook. The stuff that is recorded that I'm including in that percent is like 80% done, you know? Like there may be a few lines here and there that need to be re-recorded, but those sections and those scenes for the most part are final. They've been mixed. They've been done to the best of my ability. And then I'm going to give that to the author. And my sister is also helping me with it. Just catch anything before I send it to the author. And any, sentence structure things, anything that's odd, I'll fix it. So I'd say 29%. Once we reach that 100% mark on the audiobook, it won't be that much longer before, you guys can listen to it. Probably just be a month or so. So treat that 100% as a pretty good indication of where the book's at. So right now we're coming up on 30%. I'm hoping to hit 60% by the end of June. So that's my main goal going into this month. I'll probably cover it again in my monthly wrap up. This is probably, by the way, going to be a regular thing. I'm going to cover my progress on the audiobook and my progress on the book. So my manuscript. I'm thinking I'm going to go in a different direction with my prologue. I took a very line edit, copy editor look at prologue through chapter 2. And it's about 56 chapters total. But I took a real hard look at the first 3, prologue, chapter 1, chapter 2. Chapter 2 is looking pretty good. I'm pretty happy with it. Chapter 1 is like, I'm finding the voice, but it's slow going, last night I spent 3 hours to fine tune 5 paragraphs, and then the prologue is kind of a hot mess. So that may be the priority going into this next week. And my goal is to have 5 chapters feeling final and coherent by the end of the month. So we'll see. Maybe I'll get more, maybe I'll get less. I'm not going to beat myself up if it's not. But let me know what y'all are reading, what y'all are working on. If you're a writer, a reader, a creator, an artist, drop down in the comments below. Your voice matters, and peace.